I've watched this Blackberry movie about 3 times now, and I have to say, as a movie, it's pretty good, but I didn't see it that way at first. I worked at Blackberry, or Research in Motion as it was called back in the day, from 1993 to 2007, and I can tell you this movie has got a lot of inaccuracies and a whole bunch of plot lines that are completely fiction. For instance, in the movie, Palm is trying to take over RIM, basically buying it, which is outrageous because Palm never had any money, which is what killed him. Or RIM completely re-engineering the insides of the network to make more capacity. Yeah, like that could be possible. Or RIM poaching key senior engineers from Google and Microsoft using gobs and gobs of stock options. Also didn't happen. Okay, there was backdated stock options, that is true, although it wasn't like it was in the movie. I was first contacted about this movie in late 2020, and I provided a whole lot of historical information and photos and stuff like that, although looking at the movie I can't really tell that they used any of that stuff. And when the trailer came out earlier this year, I did a reaction video on it, basically saying, well, this movie can't be very historically accurate, at least based on the trailer, and indeed it isn't. But based on that video trashing essentially the trailer of the movie, I got a call from Matt Johnson, who is actually this guy because he's also in the movie, asking if I'd like to do a commentary track for the DVD release of this movie, which will be sometime in the fall. And I was kind of like, are you serious? After I trashed a trailer? But yeah, he loved my video about the trailer, even though I'm being rather cynical about it. So I did that, and that's how I got a copy of this movie on my computer. It's watermarked. Can't really see very well here, there, so I won't be sharing this file though. So watching about the first half of this movie, I really couldn't get into it at all because I was kind of like, that's not how these guys were like, that's not how Jim was like, that's not how Doug was like, that's not what Mike was like. Because of course I was comparing it to my personal memories of working at RIM, and I was also recording the commentary track pointing out a lot of these inaccuracies. But then as the movie progressed, especially as it got into past 2007, which is when I left RIM, I no longer had personal memories to compare against it, and I got into it more as a movie, and I'm like, you know, actually this is actually a pretty good movie. So if you haven't got personal experience working at RIM as a movie, it's actually a pretty good movie. So Jim Balsillie is portrayed in being in charge of everything, which he wasn't. He's also being portrayed way more harshly than he was. And that reminds me a bit of an anecdote that I wish I'd included in the commentary track, but I only thought of it now. RIM, back in the day, at some point they wanted to buy Maple, who made basically something that competed with Mathematica or Wolfram. Wolfram didn't exist at the time. And purchase didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and a whole lot of the engineers were like, why are we trying to buy this company? You already poached the good engineers out of it. And nobody really had the guts to say anything to Jim about it, because that was one of Jim's shenanigans. But I felt it's like, I'm the only one who is reckless enough with their career and senior enough that I could get away with it. Well, somebody's got to talk to Jim about it. So I went to his office, except there was a couple of other people in his office sitting at the little conference table in there. And it's like, no, I'll come back later. And Jim's like, no, just tell it to me now. And I said what I was going to say, which was poorly timed, perhaps. I said, this buying Maple idea, it's a stupid idea because it sounds like one. It sounded like a stupid idea, and it was. He didn't take very well to that, and I got to experience angry, harsh Jim. And the barrage that came back from that, I was kind of like, okay, just don't back away from the door, because that's kind of a bad signal. Just stand your ground, at least physically. Stand there and, you know, just listen to it and don't, like, you know, run away. Although I swear the other two guys that were sitting at the conference table in his office, I swear they ducked. But that said, there was no F-bombs or swearing. It's just... he could express his disapproval without swear words. So that was perhaps more the Jim like he's portrayed in the movie. But again, not as foul-mouthed as the guy in the movie is. But epilogue to that, a year or two later at a RIM picnic, I was talking with Jim, and he said, yeah, the whole thing, it fell through because his plan was to essentially pull some shenanigan where he could get the company for free. But that didn't happen, and he was smiling as he was telling the story, so I wasn't bitter about it, and I felt vindicated that it really wasn't such a good idea. But yeah, that's my Jim anecdote. I wish I put that in the commentary track. And Jim has since written an article about what he thinks of the movie, and is basically saying it's fair game. And really, like, Jim is portrayed as being in charge of everything, which he wasn't. I mean, he was co-CEO, but he wasn't running the whole show. So in some ways, other than being perhaps portrayed as a bit of an asshole, I think the movie is perhaps reputation enhancing for him. On the other hand, Mike Lazaridis, portrayed as this guy here, that's not what he looks like at all. This is what he really looks like. If I was Mike Lazaridis, I think I'd be pretty unhappy about the movie, because he's kind of portrayed as a shy, totally nerdy, inept, socially inept sort of engineer, which is not him at all. Like, he was the motor, the driver, the entrepreneur behind RIM, and a very convincing man, you know, technically capable and very convincing. He had this aura of just certainty about him, and much like Steve Jobs is said to have had sort of a reality distortion field in terms of his inability to convince, Mike Lazaridis had some of that as well. Now, the Doug character, portrayed by the director Matt Johnson, is so far off the mark from the real Doug Freakin that it's actually kind of funny. So I would imagine Doug Freakin's probably having a chuckle about it, about them having gotten it so wrong. Like, the only thing this guy's got in common with Doug Freakin is the name. So yeah, kind of funny. I actually kind of got to like this character once I got over the fact that this character is essentially an entirely fictional character, no relation to the actual Doug Freakin. Now, as the movie progresses, it actually gets more real in that it covers things that are more accurate to actual history. It covers stuff like dealing with the stock option backdating scandal, which isn't really quite like it was in the movie. Also covers dealing with basically the whole iPhone thing, because the introduction of the iPhone, of course, was a major challenge. That and Android, I mean, that's what killed RIM in the end. And it covers a fair bit of that. Of course, it's greatly simplified from what actually happened, because if you actually wanted to cover the story of RIM or BlackBerry true to life, that plot would be so convoluted, so many dead ends, so many little side notes and whatnot. It wouldn't fit a 2-hour movie, and yeah, you just need to spend way more time at it. And really, if you want a historical reference of what happened at RIM, this book, Losing the Signal, is a much better reference. When I read that a few years ago, I found very few inaccuracies in it, not like the movie. But anyways, it's a movie, and as a movie, it's actually pretty good. It's just I had a hard time getting into it because I kept comparing it to my personal experiences at RIM. And as the movie progresses beyond 2007, which is when I was no longer at RIM, I actually appreciated it more because I had less personal memories to draw on. I mean, I kept in touch with people at RIM, so I knew it wasn't quite like in the movie, but still, it was easier to appreciate. And the fact is, if you're somebody who's got no connection with RIM, this tells you a lot about RIM, or BlackBerry as it later became. Tells you a lot about the company that is perhaps not entirely factually accurate, but gives you a good gist of what happened. So it's a good movie to watch, and when a DVD comes out, hopefully they will use that commentary track that I provided for them, and then you'll have a whole lot of cynicism to listen to. But if you do buy the DVD and watch it, watch it without my commentary first, because I might ruin that movie for you. And just editing this together, I just had the thought, it's like, what if Mike Lazaridis portrayed the Mike Lazaridis character in a movie? And I have to tell you, that would suck, because Mike Lazaridis is way too reserved. That's the problem with movies. Like, to make an entertaining movie is not necessarily the most accurate. Again, if you want the story, read the book. If you want to know roughly what happened and be entertained, watch the movie.